party lines, move as many pieces of legislation forward as soon as possible, hopefully before we go home for Christmas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There will be 8 minutes remaining in the time for questions and comments to the member for Saskatoon West when the House next resumes debate on the question. But now we're going to statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for St. Catharines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Great Holiday Food Drive is an important annual event in St. Catharines that aims to stock our local food bank heading into the holidays. Demand is high, and volunteers from throughout the community will pack the front lawn of City Hall with generous donations from residents. Our government has made great strides by putting forward policies that aim to reduce poverty, ranging from our recently announced affordable housing strategy to the Canada Child Benefit. My hope is that one day we will no longer see the need for community food banks. However, until that day comes, I commend organizations like Community Care of St. Catharines and Thorold and their Executive Director, Betty Lou Suter, on the amazing work they do to help those in need throughout St. Catharines. To Betty Lou, her staff, and all the volunteers involved and those who have donated, thank you. For all that you're doing to remind residents, I want to take the time to remind residents, and I know Betty Lou would want me to do that there's still time to donate. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte de Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, I attended the Senate 150th Anniversary Medal ceremony. This medal was created by a special Senate committee to honour Canadian men and women or organizations that make contributions through their generosity, their extraordinary dedication, and that has often gone unnoticed. I'd like to congratulate the Côte de Beaupré Optimist Club that supports families in financial difficulty and helps children remain involved in their community to foster their development. I also want to congratulate the Charlevoix Ressources Genesis organization, whose mission it is to support the rehabilitation of individuals dealing with addictions to, for example, alcohol, drugs, gambling, or online addictions, and who also support the families of these individuals. Their presence at the Charlevoix Casino as a prevention resource is also much appreciated. I am very proud of these two organizations from my riding for this well-deserved honor. Merry Christmas to all.
Excusez-moi. Alors, juste un moment. L'interprétation ne fonctionne pas? No. L'interprétation.
Interpretation? Is the interpretation working? Go ahead.
For Essex to perhaps start all over again. We've got a few seconds in there we can save, and we'll start again, this time with interpretation. The Honourable Member for Essex.
Today I rise in this House deeply saddened by the loss of a dear friend and community hero, Tom Robson.
Tom was a World War II veteran who died yesterday at the age of 94, and he will be so deeply missed. Tom joined the Navy in Windsor on May 6, 1941, and fought in the Battle of Madagascar, defending ports in South Africa, Malta, Sri Lanka, Mumbai, Kolkata, and many more in the Indian Ocean. He spoke of the war matter-of-factly. He once told me we were deep in enemy territory, laying mines and water laced with enemy traps, with U-boats traveling beneath us and air bombers flying over top of us. After the war ended, Tom was discharged and returned to Windsor to reunite with his family. He knew the importance of community, setting an example for all through his service in the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 201, and the Knights of Columbus. Tom volunteered with the St. Vincent de Paul and the Essex Food Bank and drove cancer patients to and from their treatments and appointments. The people of Essex honored Tom's service last month at a dinner I attended where he was named 2017 Essex Citizen of the Year. Tom, thank you for your kindness, selflessness, courage, strength, and friendship. You will be missed by all.
The honourable member for Orleans.
Mr. Speaker, some 1.7 million Canadian families still do not have a home that meets their basic needs. This is unacceptable. In a country as successful and prosperous as Canada, everyone should have a roof over their heads.
The Minister of Families, Children and Social Development and the Member of Parliament for Spadina for York, our government took a big step towards achieving this goal with the first ever national housing strategy.
Over the next 10 years, this strategy will remove 530,000 families from housing need and cut chronic homelessness in half.
I met with local stakeholders from the Emily Murphy Nonprofit Housing, the Cumberland Housing Corporation, the Orleans Cumberland Resource Centre, Habitat for Humanity Ottawa, and Place Perrot to discuss how the new Canada Housing Benefit will ensure stability for those Orleans residents struggling with basic costs of housing. Mr. Speaker, we're all excited about the benefits of this strategy. We're excited at the benefits it will bring to the community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government left Canadians in the cold. Pension bills and ethical ills, they all deserve some coal. Balanced budgets are a fairy tale, they say. Canadians know as deficits grow, our kids will pay someday. He led them down Ottawa town right to the ethics cop. When she saw numbered companies, she ordered them to stop. This Liberal government is deceitful as can be. Expect to pay each and every day as long as it's you, not me. Stumbling, stump, stump, stumbling, stump, stump, promises just for show. Bumbling, bump, bump, bumbling, bump, bump, where did our money go? Merry Christmas, everyone. Joyeux Noël.
Merry Christmas. The honourable member for Ville-Marie, Le Sud-Ouest, Île-des-Sœurs.
Mr. Speaker, they've got 10 years to get that song right. Whether skating in the Old Port, shopping at the Atwater Market, or attending a Christmas concert at Notre Dame Basilica, Montreal is a picturesque place to spend the holidays.
Last year, Montreal wanted to add tallest Christmas tree in Canada to its list of attractions, a tree rivaling the famous tree at the Rockefeller Center in New York.
Alas, the 88-foot tree that arrived, though undoubtedly iconic, did not quite live up to the hype. Described by some as ugly, skinny, and lopsided, images of Montreal's ugly tree quickly spread. But like Charlie Brown and his friends, our city learned to love its ugly tree.
Montreal loved its ugly tree so much that it's back, this year in the shape of a lopsided Schtroumpf hat, at the center of the Christmas village called Le Village du Vilain Sapin. Mr. Speaker, the ugly tree is becoming a real tradition in Montreal.
Mr. Speaker, about the tree and Christmas, and for that matter, this MP, is that the true beauty is on the inside. I know it's early. C'est tout. Joyeux Noël à tous et à toutes.
Merry Christmas to all. The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, poverty is often closer than one may think. Approximately 10% of families in Quebec live below the poverty line. Approximately 4 million Canadians are experiencing food insecurity. The food drives taking place on street corners, in your grocery stores, and throughout Canada are an extraordinary source of comfort for those in need. In order to make sure that every family has enough to eat over the holidays, we must come together to collect enough non-perishables and food during the holidays as well as the following months. January and February are critical months for most food banks. I'd like to thank the Complexe Le Partage, the Corne d'Abondance, and all those community organizations working to alleviate poverty. I would invite all my colleagues and all Canadians to generously contribute to your local food drives. Your contribution makes a difference, so if you can, please give. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, last week, an institution in the riding of Louis Saint Laurent received national recognition. Tourisme Wendake was awarded the prestigious Canadian Cultural Tourism Award from the Tourism Industry Association of Canada. As you know, Wendake is in the heart of my riding, and Wendats are proud, successful, and accomplished people. And there are many tourist attractions, whether it be the Museum Hotel, the Longhouse, recreated village, crafts, quality tables, the Saint Charles River, or the Kabir Kuba waterfalls, where I'll be tomorrow. That is why so many foreigners come to Quebec and travel to Wendake. There is so much to gain by discovering the wealth of cultures in our communities. Bravo to First Nations, bravo to Wendake Tourism for this well-deserved national award.
The Honourable Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, the child poverty rate in Toronto is amongst the highest in the country. And to put this in perspective, there are more poor kids living in my city than there are any number of constituents and any MPs riding in this House. Half the people tonight who go to sleep in the Toronto Emergency Shelter will be children. This number doesn't include youth in care, doesn't include young offenders in custody, because effectively those people are also homeless. We've delivered our country's first ever national housing strategy, the largest and longest investment in housing in this country's history, but we cannot end homeless if we don't focus on young people and tackle youth homelessness. We must and we will. Indigenous youth, racialized youngsters, queer kids, foster kids, young adults with disabilities are strong and resilient, but our systems are breaking these children and projecting them into homelessness and projecting them onto the streets. I ask all of Parliament, I ask Canadians everywhere to build a better future for these children by building housing now. Give them a safe and secure place to call home. It starts with housing. It has to happen sooner than later. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to spotlight a few organizations in my riding, the Bay of Quinte, that serve our community with very special holiday programs. To date, the Gleaners Food Bank and Christmas Sharing Program helped over 1,300 families enjoy nutritious and tasty food with a holiday basket. The Salvation Army Coats for Folks program gave out more than 760 clothing items for winter. Trenton's VON's Christmas for Seniors program connected volunteers with seniors who needed assistance with holiday shopping or preparations. And toy drives by Belleville's professional firefighters or the Quinte West Kinsmans helped over 700 families provide holiday gifts for their children. I remind each of my honourable colleagues and all Canadians that the needs of our most vulnerable community members don't disappear when the holiday season ends. Please stay generous all year long. Whether it's food, funds, or volunteering, time, our donation, no matter how small, can make all the difference. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Have a happy holiday.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes Brock.
Mr. Speaker, Canada and Norway are celebrating 75 years of diplomatic relations, which began in 1942 at the height of the struggle against fascist tyranny in World War II. After the war, Canada and Norway continued building on their bilateral relationship as new threats to international peace and stability emerged. Canada and Norway would once again stand shoulder to shoulder as strong partners under the NATO alliance. As NATO allies and multinational partners, we enjoy cooperation on a regional and global security issue basis. We are like-minded on issues such as arms control and disarmament, war-affected children, gender equality, human rights, and defending the fundamental rights and freedoms that the free peoples of our two nations cherish. We also share a special bond over the protection and preservation of the Arctic. There's lots of Norway in Canada, Speaker. Nearly 500,000 Canadians draw their heritage from the land of the midnight sun. There are 73 Norwegian and Norwegian-affiliated companies operating in Canada, employing thousands. Colleagues, please join me in thanking our Norwegian friends and allies.
There. The Honourable Member for Canada Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect on the inspirational volunteers that I've met in my riding of Canada Carleton this year. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say that our work would be impossible without the hard work of volunteers. I want to say Thank you to the countless volunteers from across the region who came out to the riding during the floods in Constance Bay and West Carleton. They carried sandbags, they cooked food, and they helped their neighbours in need. Thank you to the volunteers at the Canada Food Cupboard and the West Carleton Food Access Centre who are making sure that everyone has a Christmas meal this holiday season. These amazing volunteers have brought our communities closer together, inspiring neighbours to help neighbours in the true holiday spirit of selflessness and compassion. To all of the volunteers in Canada Carleton and indeed across the country, I say thank you. Keep up the wonderful work, and may your holidays be filled with much joy, peace, and love. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, a few days ago, Mr. André Ashgagnon died. He was a businessman, a man with a big heart, and a great philanthropist who left his mark on my riding. Aside from managing and growing many Rona hardware stores, André Ashgagnon chaired the Rona Group board. André Gagnon deeply loved Saint-Hyacinthe and showed this by, among other things, supporting approximately 250 causes every year. When he deemed it necessary, he expressed his opinions publicly. They were always thoughtful, and their purpose was to inform community debate on specific issues. His actions and his positions were always inspired by love, family, friendship, determination, justice, sharing, and hard work. He was and will remain for us a great inspiration. We all salute the memory of this great Mascoutin man.
The Honourable Member for Barrie-Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Memorial Cup was here on Parliament Hill. It's been 17 years since the Barrie Colts were finalists, and their loyal fan base is hopeful the Colts will be back this year in Regina for the 100th anniversary of the Cup. I will, however, admit to being somewhat conflicted, Mr. Speaker, because my son plays for the member from Oshawa's team, the Generals, so I cheer mightily for both teams. Mr. Speaker, my second annual family skate at the home of the Colts, the Barrie Molson Centre, takes place on Saturday, December 23rd from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Admission is free, and again this year, I'm asking skaters to think of those less fortunate in our community and bring along non-perishable food items to support local food banks. It will be a great afternoon to lace up the skates, enjoy a cup of hot chocolate while having fun helping others in our community. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish my colleagues in this House and all of the residents of Barrie-Innisfil a very Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous 2018. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton-Canso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Flags have flown at half-mast this week in Mi'kmaq communities across Atlantic Canada with the passing of Grand Chief Ben Siliboy. The Grand Chief was first appointed to represent his community as captain to the Grand Council in 1968. He went on to serve as Grand Council Chief for 26 years. He served on a multitude of local, regional, and national boards that promoted the Mi'kmaq language and traditional knowledge of his people. A residential school survivor, his contribution to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was both profound and inspiring. One of his greatest accomplishments was leading the charge to establish Maui Dank, a home for adults in his community with intellectual disabilities. Chief Rod Gugu of Wakaba said, and I quote, "He was not just great for our race, he was great for the human race," end quote. To his wife Marie and his daughters Michelle and Christina, our heartfelt sympathies. Know that Ben's wisdom, his guidance, and his faith will live with us for years to come. Hear, hear.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Hey! 5 months ago, the Finance Minister told local businesses he would impose a reasonableness test to determine what they were allowed to pay to contributing family members as part of the business. Now, 3 weeks before that so-called reasonableness test will take effect, nobody has any idea what it means. There are no written legislation, there are no written rules, but businesses are now scrambling right before the Christmas break to determine what the laws will be. How Is that reasonable?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to reassure the member the details will be known very shortly. And I also want to highlight what the Finance Minister has also announced, which is a reduction in the small business tax rate from 10.5% to 9%, which will represent on average $1,600 per small business in Canada, and up to a maximum of $7,500, so they can invest in innovation, in hiring workers. That's because we believe in the importance of small businesses across the country to contribute to Canada's prosperity, and we are very proud of our small businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Well, the small business tax rate was already set for 9% when this finance minister took office. He then raised it back up to 10.5%. We're happy that due to the unrelenting pressure of the official opposition, he is back down from that. Mr. Speaker, now small businesses are expected to have faith in this government's idea of reasonable. Reasonable to them is raising taxes on people with diabetes, on waitresses enjoying a small sandwich during their break, on autistic people, on farmers, and on small businesses. How can this government expect small businesses to have faith that the government will be reasonable in their treatment of family compensation?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quite to the contrary, we lowered taxes for small businesses from 11 to 10.5 and now to 9% by 2019 because we recognize the importance of small businesses in Canada. We will always be behind our entrepreneurs, and what's reasonable, Mr. Speaker, was to do the investments we've made in infrastructure, was to go forward with the Canada Child Benefit that's contributed, Mr. Speaker, to more growth in this country in the last 2 years than they ever could achieve in 10 years, and that's good for small businesses.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the finance minister appears unable to stand up and answer basic questions about a plan that he will impose in just 3 weeks. It's not just that this finance minister owned shares in a company he regulated, or introduced a pension bill while having ownership in a pension company, or sold shares just a week before market-moving tax measures. All of those things were ethical lapses and failures, but because he's up to his eyeballs in these troubles, he is unable to do his job, which is to answer questions and tell people what the rules will be. If he can't do the work of a finance minister, why won't he step aside and let someone else do it for him?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recognize this is Friday, and the member for Carleton is sometimes a bit careless with facts. When we talk about the measure announced on December 7, Mr. Speaker, it was not deemed market-moving. And let me remind you, Mr. Speaker, and the Canadians listening, that the measure we introduced on December 7, 2015, was to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1%, to lower them for 9 million Canadians. And for the people at home who are watching this, for the middle-class Canadians, it's $670,000 plus per year on average. And it's also for a couple, it's $1,340 more in their pockets, because we recognize that a prosperous and successful middle class is good for Canada.
Deputy Louis Saint-Laurent.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, after period question, I'd like to verify whether the affirmations of the Parliamentary Secretary. What we know and what business people know is that on January 1st, there will be new tax measures. It's been, they only have 3 weeks, business people. Every day that passes is 1 day less. When will the government tell us what these tax measures will be? So we can debate it here in the House. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can reassure my colleague that the measures and details will be tabled very shortly. It will be made public for small business owners. And I'd like to remind him of the purpose of these tax measures. It's to create more tax fairness so that people in Canada can save money, can pay less taxes. These taxes will be fair and equitable for all Canadians. The Honourable Member. Well, every day that passes is 1 day less to get prepared for these measures. I think that we'll at least have them next week so we can debate them in the House. Now, let's remember the sad memory about what this government did on the 18th of July. There were increases in tax of up to 73%. So now there are a lot of people who have to pay more money for transferring businesses to their family members. They need to be able to prepare as is their right. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Mr. Speaker, we will make these details public very shortly, and people will have the information necessary to make enlightened decisions. We will always help family small business. We want more fairness in our tax system, and Mr. Speaker, we'd like to remind people that this government created 600,000 jobs, and we have a growth rate that is the best in the G7. We are the envy of the world. They were never able to accomplish this in 10 years. The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals promised to fix the problematic elements of the Conservative Anti-Terrorist Bill. And the Privacy Commissioner sounded the alarm in committee yesterday on Bill C-59. The threshold of disclosing information is too low. Will the government agree to make changes to the bill in order to protect Canadians' rights? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yesterday, the Privacy Commissioner said that Canada is moving from the back of the pack and catching up with the rest of the international community. In fact, he said moving to the lead as a result of the legislation with C-59. So the fact of the matter is that this legislation is putting us in the vanguard, that we are ensuring two things equally. One, the protection of Canadians, and two, making sure that their rights are protected.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are claiming it is not possible to repeal Conservative Bill C-51. But my colleague from Esquimalt, Saanich Suk, is proposing just that with his Bill C-303 to fully protect Canadians' rights. Under the 138-page Liberal Bill C-59, CISA still has expansive and invasive powers. The privacy of Canadians is still under threat, and oversight of government agency is insufficient. Will the government divide Bill C-59 into separate bills so they can be properly studied? Canadian rights are at stake.
Hear, hear. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Bill C-59 was preceded by the most exhaustive public consultation that happened across Canada ever on national security. Secondly, there was an opportunity by the Public Safety and National Security Committee to ensure that there was a review of the security framework, and that led to the legislation that's before us today that is going to see finally the oversight that was talked about for so many years, including when I was the critic in opposition and pushing for it. We've waited for over a decade. It's time to move forward with appropriate oversight.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the finance ministers will be meeting this weekend, and we're worried the federal finance minister might once again impose his own vision. He failed to consult with the provinces before announcing his plan for the taxation of cannabis, and he did the same for health transfers. And now concerns are being raised that the Liberals will change equalization payments without consulting the provinces first. What is wrong with this government? The Liberals must work with the provinces instead of simply imposing changes. When will the government honour its commitment to true partnership with the provinces?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the contrary, we value the work that we do with provinces, and we look forward to the discussions that will happen next week with the finance ministers of all provinces as we continue to collaborate with all provinces and territories to make sure that our economy is successful and thriving. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
La députée d'Hochelaga.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, we learned yesterday that the government would be imposing its vision of housing and health care. They're now planning to change the way equalization is calculated. Is that a partnership? The finance ministers will be meeting at the end of the week. Will the government finally start treating provinces and municipalities as partners rather than subordinates? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we have always treated provinces as partners, and we're looking forward to the discussions between the minister and his counterparts in the provinces. We want to work in a good way with all provinces.
2,000 small businesses in my riding, and most of them are run by people with families, and many of them live hand to mouth, depending on the vagaries of the federal tax system. And the Minister of Finance has said that he's changing the rules on January 1st, but he refuses to provide any details. Just how does the minister think that giving these people less than 24 days to do their tax planning is fair, especially at Christmas?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's important to highlight that our government has always been behind small businesses. We've lowered the small business tax rate from 10.5 to 9% by 2019. We believe that's important to stimulate growth. And with regards to the question from the member opposite, the details will come very shortly. Our goal here has always been to bring more fairness to our tax system while supporting the family business model in Canada.
Honourable Member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd say that the Liberals are acting like Scrooges, except that Scrooge saved money, and that's a foreign concept for this Liberal government. I mean, they seem to think it's fair to spend $2.2 million paying actors for their talents, but when it comes to small business owners, the Liberals don't think it's fair to tell them how the tax changes are going to affect them. Now, in the spirit of Christmas, will the minister tell them what to expect so that they can plan for the new year?
Here. The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned time and time again, the details will come very shortly. And what's a foreign concept to the opposition is probably the concept of tax fairness in and of itself. And growing this economy as well has been a foreign concept to them. Well, they've had the lowest growth since the Second World War. They've had high unemployment, and we've reduced the unemployment levels to the lowest they've been in a decade, Mr. Speaker. That's because this government understands the economy and understands what measures needs to be taken to create a prosperous environment in Canada.
La députée de Beauce.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, for 5 months now, small business people all over the country are awaiting the tax measures that were promised, where they will see their taxes rise. And here, just after Christmas, in January, we will all be celebrating the new year, but business people will be celebrating less. Will Canadian business people get to know about these changes before the end of the year? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
La députée de Portneuf.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, why won't the Liberal government answer our questions? What's their game? Once again, the Finance Minister is attacking small business by not telling them what's in store for them in 23 days. They can't plan for things. They can't know. I mean, he's trying to find out whether he's trying to find out if he's in compliance with the Ethics Commissioner. Business people are worried. It's a minute before midnight. Will the government finally give some respect to Canadian business people and inform them of the new tax measures? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The details on income sprinkling will be made public soon, and all Canadians coast to coast will know about these changes, which will lead to greater tax fairness, which is, I know, foreign to the opposition. We are behind small business owners. We're behind entrepreneurs. We know how important they are. And we know that these people have already had a tax reduction, 11 to 9%. We've created 600,000 jobs, and we are committed.
Inville.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this week I met Keith, who owns 3 restaurants and employed 90 people. I met him while he was working a double shift just to make his payroll. He's working 7 days a week just to survive. This government continues to make it harder for his restaurant to be successful, but it gets worse. He does not even know what changes he will face on January 1st. Is this finance minister so preoccupied with his many ethical messes that he doesn't have the time to do his job?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I think it's important to remind the member and entrepreneurs across the country that we stand behind them. That's why we've decided to lower the small business tax rate to 9% by 2019, and for the employees in those businesses, we've increased the working income tax benefit by 65%, which will represent more money in the pocket, while reducing taxes for the middle class. That's more money in the pocket of Canadians from the middle class. That's what we're trying to achieve, is have a successful middle class, have a successful small business ecosystem, so that we create growth in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Sturgeon River, Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, on January 1st, there will be major changes to the way small businesses are taxed. The new small business tax changes will have a significant impact on the people I represent. To make matters worse, the Liberals have yet to release their tax plan. This leads Canadians to wonder if the Finance Minister is too preoccupied with his ethical fiascos to do his job. Why has the Finance Minister failed to tell us the details of his plan?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The details will come very shortly in advance of the January 1st implementation date, and I can tell you that the Finance Minister has been preoccupied for the last 2 years with growing this economy, and he's managed to create the conditions for Canada's economy to grow at 3.7% in the last year. That's top of the G7. He's managed to reach the lowest unemployment we've seen in a decade. That's something I can understand their envy, Mr. Speaker, and why they want to keep playing politics. On this side, we're working for Canadians and for Canada's economy.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, in Saskatchewan last weekend, the advance polls for the by-election in Battleford Lloydminster were taking place. Yet there were no advance polls in any Indigenous community. So Indigenous people who wanted to vote needed to travel in the middle of winter up to 45 minutes to get to an advance poll. This is unacceptable. How can we encourage better election participation from Indigenous people if we don't have advance polls anywhere near Indigenous communities? And how is this part of a nation-to-nation relationship?
Honourable Parliament Secretary for Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, there is no relationship more important to this government than the relationship with our Indigenous peoples. The ability to vote is fundamental to all Canadians and all Canadian citizens, including Indigenous peoples. We'll look into the matter and look forward to working with all parliamentarians to address it. Thank you very much.
Deputy de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, Parliament is winding down, and I have a question about i.e. sick leave benefits. More than a third of people who contribute will need more than 15 weeks provided for by this program. The Prime Minister had promised to review the system. Halfway through their mandate, the situation has still not moved, has not changed. People can't wait anymore. When, and I repeat, when, will this government finally review the sick leave benefit plan of unemployment insurance? Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be a member of a government that understands just how important the IE system is, not only for helping people get back to work and also for people in difficult situations. We have been working hard to make the system more flexible, more generous, and we're going to continue to do so, Mr. Speaker. We'll be working hard with our partners to make things better.
Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, there are thousands of Canadians suffering daily from Lyme disease. The minister goes on about the three-pillar plan. She talks about the surveillance, the education, and best practices, but nothing is being done to those suffering today. Her response has been weak and disappointing. This Liberal government's plan is known to be incomplete and grossly underfunded. They've budgeted a mere $4 million for research. Why are the Liberals spending more on a temporary rink outside than it spends for Lyme disease sufferers?
Great question. Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes the impact of Lyme disease on families and on Canadians. We've tabled the federal framework on Lyme disease in Canada, which clearly lays out the federal government's role in addressing Lyme disease in Canada. Our government also invested $4 million to establish the Lyme Disease Research Network. This network will work to generate new evidence and data about Lyme disease and ultimately will improve diagnosis and treatment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of National Revenue claims the disability tax credit rules haven't changed for Canadians with type 1 diabetes, but that's not true. An internal CRA memo from May 2nd directs staff to reject all those claims unless there are exceptional circumstances. In Lakeland, Alice, a small business owner, and her son, both type 1 diabetics, have received that credit for many years. This spring, the CRA rejected her claim. Wow. Will the minister stop this cold-hearted attack on vulnerable Canadians and reverse this cruel decision?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, as a registered nurse, I have personally seen the impact that diabetes can have on the lives of individuals and their families. I'm happy to say that the member of Diabetes Canada is part of the Disability Advisory Committee announced today. This committee will improve the agency's administration of benefits and credits for Canadians with disabilities. The agency will review all applications for disability tax credit under the life-sustaining therapy, which were processed with the revised clarification letter. Mr. Speaker, our position has been absolutely clear. Everyone who is eligible for this credit must have access to it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. This is a recorded message. This is what they use to answer questions. They've been saying for weeks that nothing has changed with respect to the eligibility criteria for people who have type 1 diabetes, but there is a memo of May last which indicates the opposite. I think that misleading Canadians is unacceptable. When will the minister finally do the right thing and change their decision? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Difficulties that face Canadians living with disabilities and their families as a registered nurse. I want to assure all Canadians who benefit from the DTC that the eligibility criteria for this credit has not changed. We're always open to hearing the concerns of Canadians. That is why we have re-established the Disability Advisory Committee, which was gutted, Mr. Speaker, by the previous government. Our priority has always been clear. It's to continue to focus on the most vulnerable in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, I continue to hear from constituents with type 1 diabetes who are suddenly being denied the disability tax credit. They're worried about a Liberal policy change they weren't told about and don't understand. However, the Revenue Minister continues to say that nothing has changed. It is obvious who is telling the truth, as a May 2nd memo proves that the eligibility criteria changed. Clearly, the minister is intentionally misleading Canadians. When will she admit she made a decision to raise taxes on type 1 diabetics?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of National Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me assure my colleague and all Canadians that we're committed to ensuring that Canadians receive the benefits to which they're entitled to. We have put in place measures to make the disability tax credit more accessible than ever before, Mr. Speaker. We've simplified the DTC forms. We've added nurse practitioners to certify their patients' applications. And today, Mr. Speaker, we also announced the membership of the Disability Advisory Committee, which will improve the accessibility of this credit for the most vulnerable in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I just note the Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore in her question commented and used the phrase deliberately misleading. Members will be reminded that that is a phrase that members should avoid. Notes of misleading and so on have been considered parliamentary, but when deliberate is put into the equation, that does cross a line and becomes non-parliamentary. So I just urge caution in respect of that kind of phraseology. The Honourable Member for Essex.
For many years, people in Windsor and Essex have endured a persistent low-frequency vibration coming from the U.S. known as the hum. Over the last few weeks, people have reported the hum to be louder, shaking homes, affecting sleep, creating earaches and headaches. The Liberals promised to work on this issue, but despite several attempts for information, the Minister of Foreign Affairs has yet to answer. The hum continues to negatively affect the health of my constituents in Essex and people in Windsor. They deserve answers. What action are the Liberals taking to address this issue, and why do they think it's okay for people to keep waiting?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The Government of Canada is well aware of the seriousness of the complaints from residents in the City of Windsor, to which I was a couple of weeks ago with my distinguished colleague, and of course the resultant pain caused by the noise. We understand their concern. Our officials have consistently raised the issue with their American counterparts. We will continue to engage and work to find a solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the U.S. International Trade Commission once again targeted the Canadian forest industry, a decision that the BC Lumber Trade Council has called completely without merit. The U.S. lumber industry is enjoying record profits, and Canadian imports are at a lower level today than they were when deemed non-injurious by the ITC in the last round of litigation. What is the government doing today to support Canadian producers in their appeal of this latest American decision, and when can we expect to see a long-term resolution to this ongoing battle?
The Honourable
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, as we've said throughout this dispute, punitive U.S. countervailing and anti-dumping duties on Canadian softwood lumber are disturbing, troubling, and unjust. In recent weeks, we've begun legal challenges against U.S. duties on Canadian softwood under both NAFTA and the World Trade Organization rules. Our lawyers are hard at work. Our forest industry has succeeded in every previous dispute, and we will continue to fiercely defend our softwood lumber industry and its fantastic workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member, Honourable Deputy to Glengarry.
The Honourable Member for Glengarry Prescott Russell. Mr. Speaker, our government set an ambitious target of increasing our agricultural exports to $75 billion by 2025. The implementation of CETA will help drive that goal and provide up to an additional $1.5 billion in exports per year. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture inform this House on what we're doing to ensure open doors for our farmers in Europe, help them take advantage of these opportunities, and promote our world-class farmers, ranchers, and growers on the international stage? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture. I would like to thank my colleague for Glengarry Prescott Russell and thank him for his excellent work on the Agriculture Committee. The Minister led a trade mission in Europe where he attended the biggest food fair in the world. He met official representatives and helped to open doors to our beef and pork producers. The Canadian industry has developed trade relationships that will lead to billions of dollars of sales. We've committed to putting more money in the pockets of our farmers and making sure that they can benefit from the best opportunities they can throughout the world.
Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wrapped up his second visit to Asia in 2 months, and once again he comes home having embarrassed Canada on the trade file. He says around the world that he'll only sign trade deals with his so-called progressive agenda, but then quietly in the U.S. they tell our NAFTA partners that all of those progressive priorities will be non-binding, Mr. Speaker. So today I'm going to ask the Parliamentary Secretary to put aside the sheet the PMO provided him and confirm to us today that when he and others are in the U.S., they're telling NAFTA stakeholders that the progressive agenda will all be non-binding.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, no.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. I would like to thank the member for his effort, but from the beginning of renegotiating NAFTA, the Conservative Party has just been asking the minister to take the priorities of our federation seriously. Every time we're attacked, we want to talk about trade. I would ask the minister to answer, now that it is clear that there will not be an agreement before 2018, can we be reassured that the minister will do everything to save NAFTA? Because that's the situation we're in now. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our position is clear. We are going to defend and maintain what we've acquired and make sure that they are in our interest. We negotiate in good faith and we expect our partners to do the same. However, we will not accept any proposals that would undermine our jobs and our economy. We will all defend Canadian values and interests. We want a good agreement, not just any agreement.
Caribou, Prince George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since day one, we've been challenging this government to make securing a new softwood agreement their #1 trade priority. Well, no surprise to the rest of us, yesterday's U.S. ruling seems to have caught this Liberal government off guard. Mr. Speaker, softwood lumber is now being held ransom by U.S. or an increasing protectionist administration. Hardworking forestry families and their livelihoods are being held ransom. With only weeks to go before Christmas, what is this minister planning to do and prepared to do for Canadian families?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, our government stands firmly behind the Canadian forest industry, which sustains hundreds of thousands of good jobs across the country. Through our Softwood Lumber Action Plan, we are investing $867 million to support workers and communities affected by these unjustified duties, to diversify markets and create access to international markets, and provide financial services on commercial terms. We will vigorously defend Canada's lumber industry, including through litigation as we're doing, and we are not looking for any deal for Canada, Mr. Speaker. We're looking for a good deal. Thank you.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Whether it be in Saint-André, New Brunswick, or Canadian grain farmers that I met in Calgary, everybody is wondering who's defending agriculture in this government. They've been treated like tax cheats. Family transfers have been put at risk. Tools like deferred payments were targeted for removal, and the government refused to divide C-59 for the long-haul train transportation. The list is long. The Minister of Agriculture is excluded from all free trade negotiations. Agriculture is the basis of our economy. So why are the Liberals abandoning farmers? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, our government strongly supports supply management. We are the party that fighted to implement it, and we will continue to defend it. We will also defend the interests of all Canadian farming during negotiations. Thank you.
Gina Leuven.
Mr. Speaker, a year ago, the Government Operations Committee tabled an all-party report calling on Canada Post to restore door-to-door delivery. And last week, the Minister of Public Services and Procurement promised that she would finally respond to the report before the House rises. But her Director of Communications backtracked yesterday, saying the Minister would respond in due time. Will the Minister clarify to Canadians whether she will respond before the House adjourns, or will she break yet another promise?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to my honourable colleague for his question.
Canadian institution, especially this time of year. Our government delivered on its promise to suspend the Harper Plan to dismantle home delivery. This current government is currently studying, of course, the report of my honourable friends committee, as well as the task force, and of course we will be reporting as indicated by the end of the year.
The honourable member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, 70% of the children in the Guy Favreau Early Childhood Care Complex are the children of federal public servants, but the government now wants it to pay rent at market price. Quebec is doing its part to help, but the federal government, for its part, is not keeping its promise and is only offering $50,000 a year, which is half of what this daycare needs. Will the government review its priorities and finally grant a decent subsidy to maintain an essential service for children and their families? The Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. We can see just how early childhood services are the key to our economy and our society. Children are a precious resource. Over the last few years, we've made historic investments. We've established partnerships with provinces and territories to make sure that our communities, especially families and children, can benefit from support from the Canadian government, not only now, but in the long term. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haut-Saint-Charles. In June 2016, the UN passed a resolution to bring ISIS combatants before the courts for the crime of genocide. Canada welcomed 25,000 Syrian refugees to protect them from these fanatical killers. We've been clear that the Islamic State is the enemy of Canadians and that it will be impossible to interact with these murderers. It is not a matter of money, but ideology. Will the minister take a firm stance and incarcerate ISIS combatants that return to Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Of course, we and all members of this House condemn the actions of ISIS and will pursue criminal charges against any individual who is found to commit terrorist acts. I would say that those individuals have returned. We have 2 active cases where we're seeking to go after individuals with evidence. I would note that in the 10 years under the Conservatives, the number of cases pursued, 0. So the reality is the record shows something different.
The Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Public Safety has said that returning ISIS terrorists are unlikely to ever be de-radicalized, and yet millions are being spent on these programs. How can anyone think that this is a good plan? This government knows that hundreds of ISIS terrorists are returning after committing their atrocities like nothing ever happened. Canadians know this is completely unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, will the minister commit to protect Canadians by prosecuting these terrorists?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, again, let me be clear. Yes, of course, we will go after any individual who has committed terror. But I would hope that the member opposite would join me in saying that there are acts of terror that have not been committed, that there are people beginning to walk a dark path, that we do not want to go down that path, and that prevention, which that government unfortunately did not invest in, dealing with de-radicalization is a huge priority to keep our country safe. That's why we're making it a major priority, along with going after those that have already done us harm.
The honourable member for Edmonton-Greensbach.
Mr. Speaker, they burn people alive in cages. They kill gays by throwing them off buildings. They kidnap and rape children. Now these terrorists are returning to Canada after fighting against us overseas. But instead of arresting them, the Liberals want to reintegrate them into our society. And to do that, and I'm not making this up, Liberals plan to employ methods such as poetry and podcasts. When will Liberals take the public safety of Canadians seriously?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, of course, this government is doing exactly what the Conservative government didn't do. We're investing in the services that keep this country safe. Need I remind the member opposite of the cuts that the Harper government implemented to the very services that keep this country safe? $530 million from the RCMP, $390 million from the Canadian Border Services Agency. They cut $69 million from CSIS, $42 million from the Communication Security Establishment, and $171 million from the Canadian Air Transport Facility. Mr. Speaker, we invest while they cut.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, our government was elected on a promise to strengthen science in Canada after suffering neglect under the previous Conservative government. As part of this renewed commitment, the Minister of Science commissioned a report on the state of fundamental science in Canada. The report highlighted the need for increased equity and diversity and more opportunities for young researchers in our research ecosystem. Can the Minister of Science speak to the importance of diversity and how we are creating new opportunities for young researchers across the country?
Honourable Minister of Science.
I want to thank the member for King Vaughan for her excellent work. Our government understands that diversity and research excellence go hand in hand. By increasing diversity, we bring different experiences, ideas, perspectives to advance Canadian science, grow the economy, and improve the lives of Canadians. That's why I'm acting on the recommendations of the Fundamental Science Review and the evaluation of the Canada Research Chairs Program by limiting Tier 1 renewals. This change will create new opportunities for our researchers.
The honourable member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, the Bring Wallene Home campaign has captured the hearts and attention of people from all across Canada. Still today, the Earl family live in danger despite numerous empty promises to help from the Prime Minister. Now they're being told that the only way that the Prime Minister will help them is if they obtain an adoption order from Haiti, which will require them leaving Wallene in a state-run orphanage for up to 3 years. The Minister of Immigration has everything he needs to grant a temporary resident permit and bring Wallene to safety. Mr. Speaker, as we approach Christmas, I'm asking the Prime Minister to give this family some hope and commit to helping bring Wallene home.
Honourable Parliament Secretary, the Minister of Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands that immigration cases can have a profound impact on all individuals' lives. When we're dealing with this specific case, an inter-country adoption is often a long and complex process, and we understand the challenges that are faced by families. The Minister is aware of this case. His office has been in touch with the family in order to assist them with this legal process. We are bound as a country by international and domestic laws on adoption, and as such there are strict rules in place and criteria that must be met before a child can be legally removed from one country to another. Thank you.
For Sydney, Victoria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Atlantic Canada is thriving on international trade. Our economy depends more than ever on opening new markets. Last September, our producers and fishers got to explore a whole new opportunity in Europe with the CETA agreement. Last month, I had a chance to talk with the Victoria Fishers Co-op from Northern Cape Breton, who are telling me that business is booming. Can the Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of International Trade, share with this House how CETA helped shape the future for Atlantic provinces?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the honourable member from Sydney, Victoria for all his hard work and leadership on the International Trade Committee. When CETA came into force last September, an incredible opportunity opened up for Atlantic provinces to develop new markets and grow their businesses. Atlantic Canadians now have tariff-free access to the lucrative European market for their high-quality, world-renowned seafood products. 500 million customers are looking forward to experience a taste of Atlantic Canada.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend. There he is.
Mr. Speaker, this government has set a new record for appointment backlogs. Stuck in the staggering pile of 594 vacant or expired appointments are the 12 of the 15 seats on the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council's board. Similarly, 80% of the seats on the NSERC board are also vacant. Can the minister please tell us when these vacancies will be filled? 80%.
The Honourable Minister of Science.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me welcome my colleague to his new role. Our government has put in place a new appointment process which supports open, transparent, and merit-based selection processes. It was this process that was used to appoint Canada's new Chief Science Advisor, about which our colleague from Beauce said, quote, "I read your biography, and I believe, like all my colleagues do, that you're an excellent choice. The member opposite can expect the same rigorous process can be followed to ensure all board appointments are qualified and reflect Canada."
La députée de Joliette.
The honourable member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, Monday and Tuesday, the Ministers of Finance met to negotiate sharing the cannabis tax. It's well known that Quebec and the municipalities have to take on 100% of the costs. Therefore, they should have 100% of that tax revenue. But here's the twist. In C-63, the government here in Ottawa quietly decided to collect all of the tax and then transfer some of it, depending on its goodwill. Does the government agree that tax sharing should reflect cost sharing, which means 100% to Quebec and 0 to Ottawa? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Our government released a discussion document after discussions with the First Ministers of all of the provinces and territories, as well as the Finance Ministers of those jurisdictions. That discussion document has garnered input from municipalities, from stakeholders, and from industry from across the country. That feedback will inform discussions that are scheduled to take place this weekend between the finance ministers of all the provinces and territories to resolve this important issue. And I want to assure this member that the interests of all who have costs in making the system work are under consideration in those discussions.
The honourable member for Repentigny. Do you know who knows culture, Mr. Speaker? Artists, artisans, producers from Quebec and the Quebecers that consume it, and they all refuse, letting the Minister of Heritage support an unfair privilege for web-based giants with her Netflix privilege agreement. Unions, government, management, everyone is tired of hearing the Minister of Heritage bring back to Quebec the federal government's empty rhetoric instead of defending our culture in Ottawa. Today, before the Montreal Chamber of Commerce, instead of rambling in newspeak, will the Minister stop being condescending and finally listen to those who really know culture? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have always been very clear. That said, what we presented was a cultural policy to invest in culture. Quebecers and Canadians are worried about the impact on our culture, and that is why we're investing massively in arts and cultures, $2.3 billion, the highest investment in the G7 compared to the previous government. Unlike the previous government, we understand the value of culture to our economy, hundreds of thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars for our economy. The member for Repentigny. Nice. I've got a sad story for you. 281 people lost their jobs yesterday at Davies Shipyard. Merry Christmas to the region of Quebec from the federal government. Nearly 400 families are on unemployment because the government refuses to put the best shipyard in North America to work. We need contracts, and not in 2 weeks. We need them now, immediately. This week, we found out that 5 ministers have been working behind the scenes to move the file forward. But who's slowing it down? Is it senior officials? Is it the Minister of Finance? Is it the Treasury Board? Who is slowing it down? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services. Mr. Speaker, evidently we are very concerned about this, and we do not delight in job losses in Quebec or anywhere else. Evidently, this government is trying to move opportunities forward, namely to Davie Shipyard, whether it be in the short, medium, and long term. Within the context of our shipbuilding strategy, we have every confidence that opportunities will present themselves to Davie Shipyard. We very much want to reassure people in Quebec that the government is looking into this and we are working on this file.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs. What we heard report on the Nutrition North program was released 8 months ago. Since that time, I've asked the Minister on numerous occasions when Nunavut can expect the much-needed culturally relevant changes to the program. When I asked the same question on May 5th, Mr. Speaker, the response was that the launch of the new program would be very soon. Mr. Speaker, my constituents are growing impatient. My question again is, when can Nunavut expect these much-needed changes? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Crown and Indigenous Relations.
Nakamik to the member. It is completely unacceptable that many Northerners are still struggling to feed their families. As you know, our government already expanded Nutrition North to support 37 additional communities. However, we know that much more needs to be done. We are considering all the feedback received during the recent engagement and are collaborating with Northern and Indigenous organizations to overhaul the program to be more reflective of Northern's needs and to work together on accessibility to country food. Together, we can ensure Northern families have access to affordable, healthy food.
I would like to I'd like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Mr. Tora Vomrock, State Secretary for the Minister of Finance for the Kingdom of Norway.
And I believe there's a point of order from the Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. During question period, taxing businesses came up often, and I would like to ask the unanimous consent of the House to table the budget tabled by the Finance Minister on the 22nd of March 2016, because he said
income tax rate be deferred, unquote.
Mr. Speaker, may I table this budget here in this House? The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent is asking for unanimous consent. Does he have unanimous consent? Unanimous consent is not granted.
The Honourable Member for Durham on a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I have a point of order arising out of question period, and it relates to a response given by the Parliamentary Secretary to Public Safety. And I was quite startled by the claim he suggested that in the 10 years of the Conservative government, there were